Welcome to Analysis in Chains with Nathan and Neil.
Hi everyone, Neil here. This week we're bringing you a bonus midweek episode where Nathan met with Leo Nima, the co-founder of N3XTCODER, and they talked about solving social problems through technology and blockchain. Please bear in mind that Leo's microphone had some sound quality issues, but nevertheless, this is a great interview and I hope you enjoy it.
Now it's time for an Analysis in Chains exclusive interview. Greetings, everybody. I am here with Leo Nima. Leo is the co-founder of N3XTCODER. They are an association that deals with technology and applying it into social projects. Leo is the blockchain expert at N3XTCODER. Thank you for joining me today, Leo. How are you doing?
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on your show, Nathan. Everything's good. Yeah, looking forward to chatting with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about N3XTCODER. How did you guys get started, and what sort of projects do you do with these social organizations?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you mentioned, like technology and social, these are basically the two things that we want to bring together. So together with Simon, one of the other two co-founders, we have Simon and Jonathan on board. Simon and I, we've been working in the social sector for quite a time. We've been working for Nobel Peace Prize laureate Professor Muhammad Yunus. So really looking at how can you solve social problems in a more sustainable way. And we both, of course, like technology quite a lot. And we both believe in the power of technology. And we were like, wait, these two things don't match yet. On the one hand, we have so many great technologies out there. And on the other hand, there's still so many social problems that we haven't solved yet. So how can we bring these two together? And this is basically at the core of N3XTCODER. And also look at technology and the advancement of technology itself. So it's really about thinking about new ways how we need to design technology in order to bring it forward. And what we do at N3XTCODER, basically two things. Within our service pillar, we help social organizations, social businesses with their technology projects. So it's in the field of web development, mobile development, whatever they need, technical consulting. This is basically where we can help them to develop state-of-the-art solutions. And the second pillar is our education pillar. So we do lots of workshops and trainings where we focus on coding skills, design skills, latest technologies such as blockchain, machine learning, but always in a social context. So we have specific use cases from social organizations. Participants come to the workshops to learn new skills, but on the other hand, create social impact with their solutions. So that's basically what we do kind of in a nutshell.
No, it's very exciting, and it's a very important area to focus on. I know that in my experience in working with social enterprise and social organizations, NGOs in the past, the area of technology was often a weakness. Now, are you finding that the same thing, that technology is a weakness and that you really need to be there to sort of shore it up?
Absolutely. I think that's so much on point in the social sector. We're unfortunately a little bit behind when it comes to all the latest technological advancements. And the social sector, in many cases is not there yet in terms of readiness to adopt technology as a tool, but of course also not in terms of readiness to really have innovative models that use latest technology. So there's a tremendous field of opportunities and need within the social sector to get them up to speed. And especially when you think about all these changes that happen so fast and so quickly, just within the last couple of years, it feels a lot with the social sector. We're still quite a lot in the here and now and not really anticipating what will happen in the next couple of years, let's say in the next 5 to 10 years. But we're still struggling with all the problems that we have rather than anticipating what will happen in the future.
So how do you normally approach a social organization to try and tell them, well, hey, look, guys, you need to get with the program in a technological setting? Like, is that a sensitive topic for some of these organizations?
I mean, what we see within the last, let's say, couple of months, last couple of years, yes, the sensitivity for the topics is increasing for sure. So more and more social organizations realize that they have to do something, that they have to get into the topics of digitization, new technologies. But still, it's a lot about educating them and spreading the word. Luckily, there are lots of organizations in Germany, in Berlin in particular, the Impact Hub Network, Better Place, all these organizations that are really working hard in like helping the social sector adopting to new technologies. But it's still a lot of nitty gritty work getting them convinced to do something.
Hmm. No, that does make sense. So, what are some of the more interesting projects that you've worked on in the past?
Yeah, we're quite happy. We have quite a few really good partners and great projects, which I always love to talk about because people really get inspired. For example, our good friends from IPSO, it's the International Psychosocial Organization. Sounds pretty complicated, but what they do, they provide psychosocial counseling for people in war-affected regions such as Syria, Afghanistan, and they do it via video chat. So really use like the latest technology, a great video chat platform so that people in these war-affected regions can basically connect and have access to professional psychosocial counselors, which could be anywhere. They could sit in Berlin, they could sit in South America, whatsoever. And technology really provides a solution where otherwise there would not have been any solution. And with N3XTCODER, the team was working really hard to develop a platform that is stable in these specific settings. If you think about Afghanistan, like the internet connection is usually quite good, but what happens, you have from time to time power cuts. And
Hmm.
if you then get kicked out, there's a huge hurdle for the beneficiary to log in again, to do the process all over again. So you really have to have a very, very stable video chat platform. So that was kind of one example. Another example, really good friends of ours, is called RetroBrain, and they have developed a gaming console based on the Microsoft Xbox technology, but they have done it specifically for elderly people to fight dementia. So they are
Oh,
selling
really?
these gaming consoles in elderly care homes to really address a social problem that will in the future just grow because societies are getting older, especially in Germany and countries like Japan, and technology could be a great way. Either like first of all, it's a fun exercise for people. It's a social exercise. It is something that physical exercise, and it possibly has a positive impact on cognitive abilities of people who play with the console. So taking these technologies, both of these technologies are not new, but putting them in a different context is exactly what we want to do with N3XTCODER.
No, it makes a lot of sense. As someone who is a gamer, who grew up with my parents saying that games would rot my brain, it's kind of nice to see uh, that there are people that are using games to keep the brain healthy, especially in the aging population. Oh, that's very exciting.
Totally, yeah. I was growing up playing Tekken all the time back in the day. So yes, I think my parents were in the same boat with this.
Well, let's talk a little bit about blockchain specifically, because I went to one of your blockchain training events, and blockchain is an incredibly complicated subject. Are you finding that the organizations that have blockchain use cases really understand what they're getting into with blockchain, or is it really a difficult process to explain exactly what you want to do?
Hopefully they understand what they're getting into, but blockchain is still a little bit like explaining our grandparents what the internet is. Meanwhile, they
Mm,
understand, yes, it has to do something with computers, but now they realize, okay, it's not computers anymore, but smartphones, whatsoever. It takes some time to get into the topic, but at some point in time, it just clicks, and then it's kind of, let's say, rather easy to understand what the main idea about it, about blockchain is. And what we do at N3XTCODER, as you mentioned, like we do the workshops and the trainings. So we really look at blockchain, from like the education point of view. How can we explain it to people in a, let's say, easy to understand and in a also kind of playful way to understand the logic and the concept and how blockchain works. Then more specifically, of course, look at applications for the social sector. So how can we really make use of this technology to solve social problems? And third, last but not least, look at the many different challenges. Because yes, one of the big challenges is still understanding blockchain, the technology itself, but then really understanding use cases and applications and where it really makes sense to implement a solution and where it maybe doesn't make sense to have a blockchain solution.
Well, as a blockchain person myself, everything looks like a blockchain's problem to me, because when you are a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. But have you found the same thing, that you tend to look for blockchain solutions where maybe blockchain isn't the best option?
I think so. I mean, this is what you see from like outside. I mean, there's a lot of hype, of course, in the cryptocurrency world. So there's a lot of buzz around it, and I think lots of people running into it for many different reasons. But same with blockchain itself. So you hear it in the business world here and there. Everybody wants to have a blockchain-based solution. Everybody is going crazy about the aspect of decentralization, which of course has many great advantages, but not in every use case. And I think that's something when we also speak about it in the workshops, in the trainings, I think it's quite important to look at blockchain from all different perspectives. So when you usually listen to speeches and it sometimes just goes in one direction, trying to sell you the idea that everything should be decentralized from the technology to the applications and maybe the entire governance, how things should be operated. And I think, yes, this could be nice in some use cases, but in many other cases, we will see lots of gray areas and lots of hybrid solutions out there where not everything will be fully decentralized, but it makes sense to have some sort of intermediary whatsoever.
Now, when we're talking specifically about explaining blockchain to a non-technical person, how do you do that? I've had to do it a number of times, and I've got sort of my own non-technical vocabulary that I go to, but I really am always curious to hear how other people do it, because it's not an easy task. Blockchain, there's no real simple explanation for blockchain that I've found. How do you go about it?
How much time do we have? No, I think the thing is really like, yes, there's not this one easy explanation. And even if there is, people need time to digest. I think that's quite important. Even if I could give you that one textbook definition, which could be on point, others would say this aspect is probably missing. But still, it doesn't mean necessarily that a person understands. So when I try to explain blockchain, I would generally say it is a technology that aims to get rid of situations where we usually have a centralized system and where we have to rely on intermediaries for any type of transaction. And the blockchain is the technology solution that enables this by providing a decentralized, distributed ledger. Basically a big, huge digital book that records all information, all transactions that have happened, and that basically stores it in a very secure way because it stores it on a network of ideally thousands of computers to make sure that this information is basically immutable and does not need to rely on the let's say on the intermediary itself, and you do not need to trust on anybody because you have a decentralized network. That's kind of
that's a pretty concise definition. I'm impressed.
Thank you. So we could the next workshop we just reduce in like a couple of minutes, so everything.
There we go.
And then we've done it.
Come for our 10-minute workshop on what is blockchain.
And we don't do it online, we do it offline. So come to Berlin, our next 10-minute blockchain. Yeah, very good. Thank you. Good idea.
There we got it. Now you've you've done a project with the UN that sounded rather interesting, just in terms of a use case for blockchain. I remember you telling about it at the last event that I was at. I was wondering if you wanted to maybe explain to our listeners a little bit about how it worked
Yeah,
with the World Food Program.
totally. I think a super interesting use case. I think quite important to state, like, we have not been working with them on that project, but kind of digesting the information and getting the information ready for educational purposes. So they're
Oh,
basically
okay.
my neighbors here in Munich, and they are working in the World Food Program Innovation Accelerator. And they've started many different projects in like the field of AI, in the field of autonomous vehicles or autonomous trucks, blockchain, hydroponic, whatsoever. So that's why we got in contact with them and said, look, guys, we would like to take your case basically as an really good example that we would like to replicate and use within the workshops. So just in a nutshell, what they have done, usually the World Food Program, they provide in-kind food assistance to people in regions in need, but getting the rice and whatsoever, the food in like disaster regions, in remote areas around the world, quite a difficult task. You have to reach 800 million people who suffer from hunger globally. So that is a logistical nightmare. What the World Food Program has done, they shifted from these in-kind food assistance to more like cash-based transfers, giving people money through like either really cash or vouchers or bank transfers, which made it much better and much more efficient. But still, if you have dysfunctional markets and situations on the ground, this is still kind of limited. So they started this pilot project. They started it last year in Pakistan as a small pilot to really think about how can they use blockchain as a tool to get rid of the in-kind food donations and, of course, the cash-based transfers. And they have rolled it out, and they are now kind of in the first bigger phase, which they are doing in Jordan in a refugee camp. So what basically happens is that beneficiaries get registered with the World Food Program, and they are eligible for an amount of X in terms of food. This information will be stored on the blockchain, so nothing that is a physical exchange whatsoever. And they can basically go to the local markets, to the vendors who are part of this program, and basically go shopping there. Then they were thinking about the different solutions. How do you authorize yourself? Smartphones not really there. Then they have their mobile phones. So they were thinking about a classical PIN and PUC kind of mechanism, which was okay, but didn't really work that well. Basically, and that's why I like this use case so much, we have a solution, or they have a solution now where they have iris scans. So people get registered with iris scans, and they basically go to the supermarket, buy their stuff that they want, get scanned there, iris scanned there, and everything will be tracked on the blockchain. So we have kind of the state-of-the-art technology solution in one of the most devastated places on this planet, in one of the largest refugee camps on the world, where they just basically buy with iris scan. I think this is pretty
And by iris
groundbreaking.
scan, you mean like scanning someone's eyes, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Wow.
So they just get scanned. This is how you go shopping. Yeah.
Now, what are the benefits of this program as opposed to giving money to the people directly?
I think two aspects there, and I think that's quite important. First of all, of course, the logistical topic. Reaching, and you need to think about the problem is a large scale problem. Thinking about 800 million people who suffer from hunger, who suffer from malnutrition, that you want to potentially reach, is a massive problem. Giving them cash worked, but has certainly limitations. We have around about 2 billion people who are unbanked on this planet. And in many cases, we don't have any banking infrastructure. So this is really where the technology can come in and provide a solution where you otherwise wouldn't have any solution. This way, of course, it could lead to cost savings. I think it could be a solution that saves costs for the World Food Program. Because one thing, when you think about the 800 million people, you don't need to reach them once, but of course on an ongoing basis. So even if you manage to reach millions of people in like a concerted efforts, you need to do it repeatedly, ever and ever again. And that is just a big logistical task. secondly, and I think what's really important when we look at the benefits, and I think this is one of the big learnings from this project as well, we need to implement blockchain solutions where they really make sense in terms of that they provide a solution where you otherwise wouldn't have a solution. Just replacing something that is working well in a centralized system with a decentralized system not necessarily always makes sense. Secondly, yes, of course, you could have cost savings, and this could be a huge benefit to this project because you just need to allocate your resources more efficiently. Then you come to the aspect, and I think that's quite important in the social sector, about traceability, transparency, accountability for donations, for the work that people are doing. And I think this is a massive boost for the social sector if you're able to increase transparency and traceability and so on a much larger scale. And last point, forgotten about it. Think about it. When you give people cash, then you don't know what happens with cash. Here you get so much more data in real time where you really see spending behavior of people, what they actually do, where the needs are, where maybe limitations are, and so on. So also that is then a source of really additional and valuable information.
No, it's absolutely fascinating how this program has worked out. Now, for social entrepreneurs, NGOs, and people who are in this space who want to get educated on technology and specifically on blockchain, I bet you that they could benefit from some of your events. Now, I understand you have an event coming up. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. I mean, we do our own workshops quite frequently in Berlin. We have a blockchain for social innovation training coming up, basically on November 29 and November 13. It will take place at Spielfeld Digital Hub. That's kind of our home base. It's kind of an incubator accelerator that has been set up by Roland Berger and Visa. This is where we host our workshops. And yeah, I mean, this will be 2 days intense blockchain journey. So basically the 2-minute explanation I took before, we just stretch it a little bit more and put it into like 2 days program.
Well, it sounds really good. What type of people is it geared for? Who should come to this event?
Yeah, that's a good question because we usually say for these kind of workshops, you don't need to be a developer or anything because we're not going to focus on the coding aspect of like blockchain development and so on, but rather we focus on the concept, on the applications, on the challenges. So it's basically open to anybody who has an interest in this technology, who has some sort of tech savviness, so who's open-minded, but you don't need to have real specific technology skills. Sometimes we go a little bit more into the technology part, but of course we then tell people, don't worry, like we'll get back on track in a second. So we'll talk about, sometimes we for example, we talk about the cryptography, how it works, but just at a surface to give people an understanding what's behind, but without diving too much into detail and scaring people off. But I think we'll cover a good broad range of topics within the 2 days. So if you're a social organization interested in the field, if you're just any other normal organization who wants to learn more about use cases, how to use blockchain in the social context, if you're a student, if you're a researcher, could be interesting for all of you guys.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Leo, for taking the time to talk with me. And I really hope that your event goes super well.
Thank you very much.
For our listeners, if you're interested in this event, you can go to nextcoder.org. That's N3XTCODER.org/blockchain training, blockchain training. And don't worry, I will put the link in the notes for this episode. So you can go there and you can find that. It's going to be on the 29th and 30th of November here in Berlin. Thank you very much, Leo, for joining me.
Thanks a lot, Nathan. And let's keep in touch. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to this Analysis in Chains exclusive interview.